All right, so that covers what I wanted to cover at first, but I want you to think about what you like out of our time tonight, because the more that you want, the more you intend, the more you get. So have a purpose, even in participating tonight. What would you like to, what are your questions? What would you like to learn? What's on your mind and heart? And hold that as your purpose tonight so we can practice this even as I'm speaking about purpose. So I just want to acknowledge again that I'm very honored to be with all of you. You've all chosen to be here. You've chosen, you want more of a sense of purpose perhaps in your life. And I want to congratulate you for spending the time to do this, because celebrating the small steps is actually a way to live more purposefully. So I'm high-fiving you and applauding you for even making the time to do this and celebrating that. And I also want, as we're focusing on purposeful living tonight, I want to share how this evening is in alignment with our purpose at the Wright Foundation and how it's guiding me tonight. Amy shared a lot of that, but I want you to know that I'm focusing on this purpose as I'm being with you to kind of demo for myself and demo for you. And I'm just going to share it. We share this at our staff meetings every time we get together, and you might find some things that resonate for you, perhaps, because our purpose is to live radiant and authentic lives, and to support others to unleash their potential by consciously engaging in their own transformation and leadership for the advancement of humanity and conscious, sustainable living on the planet. So some of these phrases mean something to me. I'll try to live those purposes, hopefully be radiant and authentic with you, and hopefully give you permission more to unleash your potential. And as you see your role and however you choose that, growing yourself and being a greater contribution to the world around you. So to that end of this purpose, that's kind of what's guided us in developing this. And I've been studying great lives of meaning and purpose for over 35 years, and created out of the Wright Foundation for the Realization of Human Potential and the Wright Graduate University for the Realization of Potential, which is an accredited university where we get master's and doctoral degrees in transformational leadership and coaching and graduate certificates in emotional intelligence and social intelligence, transformational leadership and coaching. But my reason for telling you all that, and again, we have public non-for-credit courses that we do, and we do consulting and training, all kinds of things. But why I'm telling you that is I'm going to be pulling from that, all these things we've studied for this long and that we've used, and the skills that we've taught people to live purpose. I'm going to pull as much of that and distill that to share with you tonight. So I wanted to let you know it's based in a lot of research and a lot of experience, and I'm going to do everything I can to share the perfume of that, the essence of it with you tonight. Because my intention for tonight is informed again by our purpose to share this research on purposeful life, share experience, and teaching people how to live that more fully. What is a purposeful life? How do we achieve it so that we can have these results in our lives? So that's all enough to give you kind of background, but I want you to think about you right now. I'm actually going to give you a poll. I want you to think about, what would you like to experience more in your life? And I'm giving you some choices here. You can check all the ones that apply. Would you like to be able to deal with stress better? Perhaps have more focus, to find satisfaction and fulfillment? And vote for as many as appeal to you. Would you like to be healthier, to live longer, be more productive? You may need to scroll down to see all these, to feel like your life is more whole, more integrated. Maybe you'd like more optimism and vitality, or to use your resources more effectively, or to have your days be more meaningful. So just, don't worry, do kind of first impressions, just go through it. And if they appeal to you, go ahead and check them. If you end up checking them all, that's fine. If you check one, that's fine. Go ahead and vote. This is a way to be involved. Okay. Just think about what you'd like. And don't overthink it. This is just kind of your gut impulse right now. I'll take a moment to do that. What are the things that matter to you that you'd like, or these results you'd like in your life? Thinking about it for myself as well. And again, make sure you scroll down. There's a lot of possibilities here. We'll be doing several of these polls throughout the evening, so you'll get used to it. We'll be pretty fast with them, but just to give you a chance to think for yourself. Okay, we're closing the poll now. Well, this makes total sense. The one that the biggest result for us is to be healthier and to live longer. Absolutely. And particularly, we're just coming through the, hopefully coming through the pandemic now, of course. And this is really important, these stages of life, perfect. But that got the most votes. But right after that are kind of tied to find satisfaction and fulfillment and to have your days be more meaningful. Well, no matter, and everything else got votes. But no matter what you voted here, whatever you looked at, that's what our research shows. And the research in the neuroscience of purpose shows that these are the kind of results that happen when you live more purposefully. You do live longer, you are healthier, you have more focus, you deal with stress better, you're more optimistic, you have more vitality. All of those things come true when you live more purposefully. So we're going to look at purpose in a lot of different ways. What is purpose? What are the barriers to purpose? Why does it matter? What does purpose do? And the research on purpose and these amazing results that happen from it. And we're also going to look at the part of our brain that we need to really activate to really live purposefully, and what that is and how we can do that and what happens when we do so. So I'm also pulling, my husband, Bob, wrote a book on business with purpose and about purposeful living in the 90s. And we've been unfolding that since that point. I'm literally right now teaching a graduate school class in it and have taught, all kinds of things. So again, I'm going to distill that. But what I love is that by practicing these things, 97% of our students who've used what I'm going to share with you say their life has more meaning and it has more purpose than before they started. So that's my hope for all of us, that we have increasing sense of purpose and meaning for ourselves. But let's look, what are the barriers to purpose? Because in these times, I think in all of our lives, we all want to be healthy. We want to live long. We want to have meaningful, purposeful days and lives. But how many of us find ourselves, I don't know, kind of spinning or unfocused, or sometimes just kind of frozen with fear, afraid to make changes, or sometimes are kind of unproductive or reluctant to make the changes we might need to. And just have a hard time sorting this through. There's so many challenges in our lives, concerns about our own health and well-being, and about our family and our friends' health and well-being, financial worries and income, the whole sense of isolation, tension in our relationships, or perhaps in our significant other, or with our families or others. And through this whole pandemic time, it's led to what Adam Grant, who's an organizational psychologist, calls languishing. And you might have seen it a few weeks ago. It was like all the papers, literally all over the world, because I think people are relating to this. Languishing is that sense of stagnation and emptiness. He said, quote, "It feels as if you're muddling through your days, looking at your life through a foggy windshield." Wow. And I think that, and he said, and that may be the dominant emotion of 2021. The sense of just kind of being stagnant, a sense of emptiness, a sense of monotony. But let's look at that. Let's be aware of what the challenges are so that we can overcome those. But let's look for you. What issues or concerns have you experienced during the pandemic, and maybe perhaps during this time now? And that's just, again, just kind of as quick go with your gut, just quickly. Any of these, you can mark as many as you can relate to. Concerns about your own health and well-being and that of your family or friends. Perhaps you've had finance, income, even business concerns, maybe a sense of isolation, maybe a hard time juggling priorities, tension in relationships, pandemic fatigue, that languishing, feeling stagnant, empty, concerns about the future. These are really current challenges that many of us have. Let's just be aware of those, because it's hard to navigate around these without being aware of them. Yeah. It's great. Just keep voting. You're doing great. And if there's other things that aren't on this list, always feel free to put them in the chat. The votes are coming in. Everything's getting some votes. We'll see what's ended up being the winner for this group. Yeah, the same thing, which makes total sense. Concerns about my health and well-being and that of my family and friends is the biggest. It's almost 70% of us, which is really important for us. But then right underneath that is isolation, that sense of being isolated. And then what's right after that is the whole pandemic fatigue, and concerns about the future. And again, everything got votes, but those are the things that are most on our hearts right now, in our minds. Well, this is important for us to see, because how do we navigate with purpose through these kinds of things? These are the challenges. I think what happens, we don't always navigate our lives. We feel like sometimes our lives are happening to us despite our best intentions. And sometimes we can just summarize with this. Sometimes just given all the things we're dealing with, sometimes we're just plain tired, just really, just tired. It's hard to focus on what would be more purposeful in the moment. So we don't realize what it really takes to live a great and purposeful life and to stay focused on what really matters. And it's hard to stay focused on purpose. And especially during the pandemic, it's been so easy to get caught in the more purposeless, more unconscious, kind of mindless activities that we call our soft addictions. This is a term that we coined, those seemingly harmless habits that take up our time and our energy, and they tend to mute our consciousness or numb our feelings when we need these resources the most. Things like overdoing the news or social media, stress eating, over shopping, like online shopping. This next one looks like my porch. This looks like me. Oh my gosh. Or just procrastinating, kind of getting glued to our couch. And also what we found is we have mood addictions. We can get kind of cranky or irritable or kind of foggy, unfocused, a little frozen, sometimes caught in drama, or sometimes an endless loop of thoughts and perseverating. We can get kind of caught in those traps. And all the studies are showing that so many people have had plenty of bad habits that have come up during the pandemic just as our way to try to cope. But these kind of more mindless, purposeless, unconscious things do get in our way. They're not sin, they're normal. Everybody's gotten them. It's really been tough during this time. But let's kind of do true confessions right now. Let's look at our own soft addictions. Which ones have you been experiencing? It's all anonymous. We're not going to know what you said, but what are the ones that you've been kind of caught in, particularly during this time? It's so common, so normal of what's been happening. You're overdoing the news or social media, perhaps stress eating, over shopping, procrastinating, feeling kind of foggy or unfocused or kind of spinning, being anxious or maybe frozen with fear, caught in drama or kind of perseverating on things and worried, being irritable, cranky, short-tempered. What are some of the things that you've experienced during this time, which takes us off purpose, but we're really trying to cope in our own way by doing these things? And it's pretty normal. We're all in this together during this time. So, and you certainly could have more than one. The studies are showing during the pandemic, wow, there's these are kind of the top ones that people are reporting, trying to cope during this time. Let's see what's true for our group. All right, the biggest one here is overdoing the news or social media. It's so addictive. It's so easy to just get caught. I want to keep up with things, but it's easy to kind of get caught. And I think, well, we have a couple that are tied right after that, which is stress eating, yes, guilty, and procrastinating. And I think we use some of these other soft addictions to procrastinate, over shopping or overdoing social media or news or whatever. So, and we're admitting to some of the mood issues we have and the fogginess as well. So yeah, we're not alone. I have them also. This is really important for us. But this is just to let us know that it's when we get caught, these are kind of unconscious, more purposeless kind of activities, are not directed, a little bit more mindless. We're trying to take care of ourselves, but they're kind of getting us off purpose. And we're kind of rudderless during this time of crisis. And it has cost to us. Obviously, these things oftentimes cost money. There's emotional cost. Sometimes there's physical cost to our body. There's financial cost. There's opportunity cost, and perhaps cost to our relationship in our world. And again, it is not a sin. This is normal. I just want us to understand we've got some challenges because these take us off purpose. And the more we can learn to define a purpose in the moment, we can help ourselves get nourished in other ways. So we're going to be exploring that more fully tonight. So let's back up for a second. Okay, we kind of look at the challenges, some of the things we're up against, the places where we're a little more purposeless, what's happening. But let's look at what is purpose and why does it matter? Let's explore that. So we'll go to the dictionary for a definition of purpose. So purpose is the reason for which something is done or created or for which something exists. It's also kind of the feeling of being determined to do or achieve something, or it's our aim of what we're trying to become or do or be. Synonyms are words like aim, ambition, aspiration, design, dream, intent, meaning, determination, resoluteness. Those are the things we want to be heading toward. I'm going to quote now more on purpose from my husband, Bob, my partner, who from his book On Purpose that he's been talking about. But he really defines, purpose is why we're doing what we're doing, and goals are what. So goals in themselves don't have meaning. They're really more, but purpose is where we discover meaning. The why we're doing what we're doing is what meaning is. It articulates the reason for doing what we do. It gives meaning to our activities, a clear sense of purpose, even if it's a tiny baby little purpose in the moment, purpose for a meeting, purpose for a small thing. It can really guide us in our life and guide us in our choices. It can bring meaning and joy to whatever we do. And when we're having a darker, difficult time, it can be like a beacon for us to orient toward. So purpose brings out our highest goals and our principles into focus. It helps us, it reduces indecision and uncertainty and confusion. It helps us be more clear about what choices to make in our lives. It propels us forward. It's like a motivational force. And it's a foundation for kind of an integrated, powerful vision and a guide to harmony in our lives to bring all the different parts of our lives together. So what I'm going to be talking about tonight and how we look at this is living purposefully, not just having one big purpose, one big mission, one big overriding purpose. If you have that, that's lovely. That's wonderful. But more importantly, what we found is purpose in the moment, living purposefully. Like in this workshop, this class we're doing together tonight, to have a purpose for that, to have a purpose in a meeting that you're at, to have a purpose in your activity, whether it's your sports or golfing or yoga or taking a walk or attending a class or a concert. What's your purpose? Is it to be entertained? Is it to be refreshed? Is it to have more of a sense of recreation, recreate yourself? But to have a purpose for it, it makes it more meaningful. Like for any gathering that you have, perhaps you get a Zoom time or in-person time with your family or grandchildren, or even on a date or at dinner with a friend. What's your purpose in the moment? Do you want to get closer to them, understand them more, share things with them? To have a purpose makes that, in the moment, makes that more powerful. And to really use it as a compass in everything. And when you start to do this more, live more purposefully, your moments get more meaningful and the bigger purpose unfolds if that's meant to be. And I'll give you an example of that a little bit later. So let's look at, what does purpose do? Why is it such a big deal? Well, it's often, and there's many studies on this, and McNart and Cashton, I'm going to be sharing with a lot with this, who did a big summary research on this, but purpose serves as a compass that's offering direction for us. It starts to become woven into our identity and our behavior, and it's a central predominant theme, becomes central to our personality, becomes more like who we are, like what really matters to us. It also leads to greater persistence than other life goals. Like it gives us grit, that determination to hang in there. And it's motivational for us. It motivates us to do more, to accomplish our goals, to have influence on others. Those kinds of things start focusing for us. All right, I think you kind of know this intuitively. I'm just using the research to underline this, but let's look at this more. Like we have a sense of what it is a bit and why it matters. And we're going to get into that more when I tell you some of the results later of living with purpose. But it looks at how can we live more purposefully? What can we do? And I'm going to go back and forth about this through our time together. And I want to share what we found in our research and my research. We discovered when we studied people who live great lives, we discovered this process we called evoluting. Evoluting is a Latin word. It means unfurling, like a scroll that unfurls. It means taking transformational leaps. It means it's different than evolution. Evolution is gradually adapting to what already occurred, already exists. Evolution is going in directions that might not have already existed. It's actually growing, transforming, and with wondrous possibilities. So we discovered as we studied these people who live great lives and who really fulfill their potential, they tend to be people of service, they tend to support other people, they have rich, deep relationships, they have satisfying relationship with themselves, they start to love their lives. And they're also the people that navigated the pandemic well. They've been following, they didn't know this, but following like a 6-phase process, these 6 skills. And they focus on their deeper yearning, which we'll be coming back to tonight. Like what are the deep desires of their own heart? Not what other people think they should do or not what's programmed by society, but what matters to them. What do they yearn for deep in their heart? The things that matter the very most to them. The things we all have, like that yearning to be known, to connect, to excel, to matter, to make a difference. And that's what they're guided by. those deep longings of their heart. And they don't just yearn, they then engage. They actually engage to meet their yearning, then to learn and to grow and to experiment. They're more present, more conscious, more aware, more mindful. They take more risks. They tend to live more adventurously. And by doing that, they tend to revelate. Well, revelating, what's that? Well, they start to become aware of what we call their matrix, that kind of the programming of our beliefs that kind of color our world, and start to realize how they're wired in that way, and realize maybe there's some wiring that doesn't really serve them in so many ways. And maybe they want to look at shifting that. They start to discover new possibilities, start to see that their life could be more colorful than they've been living it by looking at this. They also start revealing more of themselves. So they become more genuine, more authentic, more transparent. They share more of themselves. And when they do that repeatedly, and they start to see possibilities, they start to liberate. Liberating comes next. They start liberating beyond their limits. They start to experiment more with life, which means they're also more willing to make mistakes. They're not so careful. They live more audaciously and break the rules. And if you can't do that in the third of life, if you can't break the rules, then what are we waiting for? Like, how is it we've always wanted to live? Can we take some steps in that direction and break through and liberate more fully, not worrying what other people think, but really following our own deeper yearnings and break out a little more. And those that do that consistently and more strategically, they start to change their programming of thoughts and feelings and beliefs, and they rematrix. They build a new matrix of empowering thoughts and beliefs and actions and ways of being. They start becoming who they've always yearned to become. But in order to do this, we need to dedicate to really becoming our best and contributing to others becoming their best. Now that's really short. This is a circle of all this. We're not going to go into all that, but we will look at yearning tonight a little bit more fully and engaging. We'll look at two of these things, and hopefully you'll be revelating with this as well. All right, kind of giving you more background. Those skills, we'll touch on. You're going to learn a little bit more about how to live by yearning and engaging a bit tonight. And I want to give you a little bit of my own story to kind of help you understand why this matters to me, or how I've learned this. And I'm still learning, because I was pretty good at meeting my goals, but I didn't really have a sense of living with purpose. Had a strong will, and I'd work hard and I would get things done, but something was really missing. I mean, even as a kid, I was a good student. I was valedictorian. I was a state champion drum majorette. Oh my gosh, I twirled a fire baton. I wore those little white boots. I mean, I was wild. But, as a student leader, I was a scholar, I could work hard and get success. And even I reached national prominence in two different careers by the time about 28 or 29. So achievement, I worked hard. I was able to do that. And I also volunteered a lot ever since I was a kid. So I was doing good work, but something was missing for me. I felt kind of empty, kind of driven, unfulfilled. I had kind of a deadening quality in my life. And that's what I kept trying to do more. Maybe if I was more perfect, or I added more goals, or whatever. I was chubby, so I lost weight, thought that would do it. I was single. I said, maybe if I get a guy, that would do it at this age, and tried all these things. And yeah, there's life experiences, but I wasn't flourishing. I wasn't fulfilling my potential. I had a really tough time navigating through tough times also. I would just do more of what I was already doing. I would try harder. I would work harder. This is what was tough. So, and then I got a little hint. I was working with families with children with severe disabilities. I had a model program that I was doing, one of 3 in the country, to really see how can we give these families a good start in life. And these children, they would never achieve the goals that I was striving for, that I thought were so important. Yet I saw how much I really cared about them. I really valued them. And I began to awaken more through this. I started to see what really mattered. It wasn't all these goals and accomplishments, the doing of that, but what I hoped my goals would bring me, what I thought I'd get if I reached those goals, what they would do for me. I didn't yearn to accomplish a goal. I yearned to touch and be touched. I yearned to be seen and known and heard. I yearned to connect. I yearned to matter. I yearned to make a difference. And it started to help me be more in the moment, to value the moments. And that's what these children were teaching me, these families, like being present, connecting with other people, serving, expressing, being more real, having more of my feelings, being more vulnerable, letting people know who I really was, more in the here and now, where my moments became more purposeful. And as I kept working with this, my activities became more meaningful because now I knew why I was doing them. That started to bring the purpose in. That I was really learning to meet my yearnings as opposed to just my goals. And there was a distinction. And there's a big distinction between wanting and yearning. Very different. So wanting versus yearning was a piece that I was starting to learn about. So I wanted to achieve a goal, but I yearned for something deeper. And that's what led me more to purpose. Let me give you a little of the neuroscience of this. There's different pleasure centers in our brain. And there's a wanting pleasure center and circuit, and what the neuroscientists call the liking center or the satisfaction center, or what I call the yearning center. And they're very, very different, and they're very important. I only knew the wanting, goal-oriented one. What I wanted, I didn't know how to activate this other center, pleasure center. And it's the only one that brings us satisfaction. So let me give you a quick example of that. So when we want something, it's like want. I wanted to achieve my goals. I wanted to lose weight. I want chocolate right now. I want to check social media, whatever that is. So I want, but you feel the energy of that want. It's like little kid, like 2-year-olds in a grocery store. I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that kind of energy. We all have that inside of us. That wanting is important for us, but it's not sufficient. It has a neurotransmitter of dopamine. So which gives you like that little high, like want. Oh, I want that chocolate. I want to go to Starbucks. I want this. I want to check my social media. I want to go whatever. And it's part of life. But this neurotransmitter dopamine is a very fast and short-lived fuel. It doesn't last. It does not have satiation or satisfaction built into it. There's no satisfaction from that. It's why we get addicted to the soft addictions, because keep going. Maybe if I did more of it or got another or drank some more caffeine or whatever, then it would do it. But it doesn't. It's motivational. It helps us get engaged with things, but it never satisfies us. And on the other hand, yearning is very different, and it has a different circuit. So the yearning, and actually I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for a moment, if you would. And let me just speak to the language of yearning and see if you can feel inside what this feels like. Just close your eyes and take a breath. Just be with it. So, I yearn to love and be loved. I yearn to touch and be touched. Keep your eyes closed. And as I say these, just see which ones resonate for you. Chances are all of them will, but just see what floats up. I yearn to be affirmed. I yearn to matter. I yearn to be part of something. I yearn to belong. I yearn to connect. I yearn to experience life fully. I yearn to excel. I yearn to matter. I yearn to contribute. I yearn to do what I came here on earth to do. I yearn to be intimate. I yearn to be known and to understand others as well. I yearn to make a difference. I yearn to be connected with something greater than myself. And see if you can feel what those feel like. Just those deeper yearnings to love and be loved, to matter, to make a difference, to be seen, heard, understood, known, to belong, to connect, to do what you came here on earth to do, to fulfill your purpose in some way, however you define that. These are the deeper yearnings of the human heart. And every single human being has these yearnings. I don't care how young, old, background, ethnicity, race, religion, whatever. These are universal yearnings of the human heart. And this is a big, big key to living with purpose. You can take a breath now and you can open your eyes. But hopefully you could feel that kind of calm, grounding, satisfied feeling that can come from just focusing on these deeper yearnings. These have the neurotransmitter of the opioids, like opium. It's like, that satisfied bliss. These are the things when we're living more purposefully, even in the moment, we get more satisfied. Things have more meaning. Things are feel more important to us. We're more fulfilled. So let's do a little poll right now. What are you aware of that you yearn for? It could be any of these, all of these, a few of these, maybe to be secure, which I think has been really important during this time, to be connected, to love and be loved, to be seen, heard, known, understood, to learn and grow, to express and create, to matter, to have a sense of meaning, to influence, to make a difference, to connect with something greater than myself? What are the things that matter to you? Just take a second to be in your heart and see which things appeal to you. Chances are they all at some level, but some are going to strike you more than others. Let's see what you vote for here. They're all getting votes. Let's see what seems to be the most popular for us. Again, you can vote for as many as appeal to you, that apply to you. All right, let's see. The biggest one for this group is to influence and to make a difference. Yes, of course. We all want that, particularly these stages in our life. It's so, so important to know that we have that. That got the most votes for us. And then right underneath that, kind of a tie between to be connected and to be seen, heard, known, and understood. So of course, and they all got votes. That's really important. And I want to underline this, like if we can orient toward our yearning, it's actually purpose in the moment. So what happened for me, and continue to, I'm still learning this, is following my yearnings, that purpose in the moment, and my moment started to get more meaningful. And then out of that, it kind of led to bigger purposes. But I didn't have to worry about the big purposes. By following my yearnings and living in the moment, some bigger opportunities and bigger possibilities came for me. It led to my meeting and sharing my mission with my husband, Bob. So I'm going to share a photo of my guy so you can see him as well. So, which really, that we then were able to do the work together and the research and the work and the curriculum and training things to really what it takes to live a great life ourselves, and then to teach that. It came, as you've already heard, it led to the founding of the foundation and the Wright Graduate University. And it also was a basis for Bob and I writing our last 2 books together. And wow, did I need a sense of purpose to write books with my husband. I had to orient what's our purpose, because it would be easy just to get in fights. But it's perfect that one is transform the science of spectacular living. We shared this research in the heart of the fight. We were writing about the fights we were having because of just working together in this way, but it really helps us to be able to do that. So let's look at this. I want to show you a part. So we touched yearning for a bit. I want to touch engaging for a moment. I want to show you this engagement continuum to help us engage more purposefully with others as well. So how do we do that? Well, on the left side of this engagement continuum are kind of the more mindless, unconscious, reflexive kinds of things we do when we're not being that purposeful, when we're not that awake, we're not so in the moment. And it's kind of like, you know, we're kind of out of it and kind of asleep, kind of spaced out. You know, you've been on, watched several episodes on Netflix, one after the other, and you're kind of tuned out or whatever. And that's disengaged. And then misengaged, and you're kind of sort of there, but you're kind of distracted. You might be checking your phone. You're thinking about a couple of things at once, or you're doing things, but it's not, it's kind of superficial. You're maybe talking, but you're talking about the weather or just surface kinds of things, logistics, but you're not really in your heart. It's fine, it's part of human discourse, but we already have enough practice with that. And that tends to be more the purposeless, unconscious, not satisfying engagement. It doesn't hit that fulfillment we want from that yearning center. But if you look, there's a dividing line here. When we're more conscious, when we're in touch with what we yearn for deep in our heart, when we're in touch with our feelings, we're letting ourselves feel, we can start moving to this more purposeful engagement. Engaged means that you're in touch with what you yearn for, and you're using that to guide your conversations, interactions with people. Deep engagement are you're not only aware of what you yearn for, you're aware of the yearnings of the people that you're with. You care about what they care about. You're learning about them. What do they care about? What matters to them? These are deeper, more heartfelt communications. Transformative engagement comes from you caring about what you're yearning for. You're aware of the people you're with and what they're yearning for. And you start to have a greater sense of the greater world around you. You want to be touching the yearnings of the group that's around you, the greater world, your community. You want to be this greater contribution, and you start to really become even more of yourself. So I'm just putting this continuum so we can move more toward the right side of this, in touch with our yearnings and our hearts, going deep in conversation. So we can have a meaningful conversation. That's living purposefully, just to really touch deeper parts with another human being. That's where we get satisfied. That's where we have that sense of, what is there for us, that sense of satisfied, that sense of bliss. So I think you're getting this. So I'm going to go back a little bit more. We're going to go back and forth a bit. I'm going to look at, why don't we live on this right side of the engagement continuum? Why aren't we purposeful? Why don't we live in the moment and conscious? We all know it's a good thing to do. Well, let's look at this. Let's see if we can all relate to this. Have you ever experienced any of these things on this poll? So if you experience ever feeling kind of lazy or lethargic or uninspired, maybe just kind of want sameness, routine, kind of wanting sameness or routine. Kind of threw that in twice to see if you're awake. Or maybe you have difficulty focusing on single-minded tasks. Sometimes you get distracted, or you start a project, but you don't follow through, or you fail to learn or modify your actions to get new results. Or maybe like you get emotional outbursts when your routines are disrupted, or maybe failure to make future plans, even though you kind of would think it's a good idea, but you don't do it. Which ones can you relate to here? Several of them I can see for myself as well. What can you relate to? Which ones have you experienced? All right, the biggest one, feeling lazy, lethargic, and uninspired. Yep, welcome to humanity. This does happen. This is what goes on. And the next one after that for this group is starting projects and not following through. Yes, exactly. Well, let me tell you, this is a sobering poll. Why I'm going to tell you this, because this is from Dr. Dispenza, but what these are actually symptoms of someone who's had a frontal lobotomy, someone who's had their frontal lobe removed. Oh my gosh. See, purpose is really living from our frontal lobe, but we have to activate our frontal lobe to consciously choose and activate our neuroplasticity. If we don't do that, we kind of lose the power of our frontal lobe. And I'll go into this more as we go so you can understand how important it is, this conscious aspect of ourselves. Dr. Michael Merzenich, who's kind of considered the father of neuroplasticity, says, well, we have to use our frontal lobe in order to have a conscious life, to have a purposeful life. We have to choose to activate our neuroplasticity, to build new neural pathways of beliefs and thoughts and behaviors, to become, not just to be doing our old habits all the time, but in order to activate that, we have to have intent. We need to stretch a little bit. We need to kind of get right at the edge of our comfort zone, a little bit outside our comfort zone. We need novelty, new things, and we need repetition to be able to build more of this, build this part of our brain, which is really what purposeful living, which is the aspect of our brain we need. Our frontal lobe is the conscious, mindful part of ourself. It's not our IQ. It's not what we measure with our IQ. This is like the conductor, the executive control center of our brain. It helps us break out of the default of that purposelessness and our soft addictions. It's when we're learning new things and we're interacting with other people, we're stimulated and we're challenged. And when we put our conscious awareness on the things that really matter to us, we use this part of our brain to capacity, that's where our behavior starts to match up to what it is we really care about and our purpose. And it gives us an internal strength when we're doing this to not respond to those things that immediate gratification, soft addictions, or distractions. When we can activate this part of our brains right here, we have more impulse control. We actually can make more conscious choices, even healthier choices in this case. We can hold on to our purpose and our long-term desires when we're using this part of our brain. But without activating it, we tend to just use our reptilian brain, which is more about just survival, or our mammalian limbic system, which is more concerned with keeping things familiar and comfortable and regular, but it's not satisfying, nor does it fulfill our purpose. It's part of being human. It's not the part that's going to fulfill us and to really help us have the meaningful lives you said that you wanted. And we start to become creatures of habit, and that's not where we're going to be living more purposeful. Purposeful keeps us growing, keeps us learning, keeps us doing new things, keeps us orienting toward possibilities. So if we look at when we're on purpose, we're activating the frontal lobe. It's this right here. And some people call it the throne of divinity, the seat of our consciousness. Some people call it the seat of our soul, our highest self. It's where we create our lives, not just be on default. And the questions and focus of our frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex, is like, what's possible? Who could I become? what could our world become? It's very vision oriented. So when we operate from vision, we're activating this part of our brains. The frontal lobe focuses on our yearnings, being present, conscious, mindful. When we're present, conscious, mindful, we're activating our frontal lobe. When we're intentional, we're using it. When we're purposeful, we're connecting our mind and our heart with that. And when we're mindful and conscious, oh my gosh, what happens with that? I'm going to share a little clip from Ellen Langer, who was the first woman in the psychology department at Harvard to get tenure. And she spent her career on studying mindfulness and awareness and consciousness. She started out studying mindlessness, but she didn't want to be known as the mindless lady. So she started studying mindfulness. But look what she talks about. She's going to see the results of her studies about mindfulness. We'll play this little clip so you can see, wow, what happens when we live more consciously.
And the experience of this mindfulness, of this active noticing, is the feeling of engagement. Okay? It feels good. It's what we do when we're having fun. Humor relies on mindfulness. Later, you tell Andrew to give me an extra 2 minutes, and I'll tell you a joke to prove that to you. All right, the point of this is, as we notice new things, we become aware of the inherent uncertainty. Everything is always changing. Everything looks different from different perspectives. So it's a great mistake to hold it still. Now, the time and money we spend trying to increase health, creativity, and vitality, I suggest would not be necessary if we didn't teach people to be mindless in the first place. All right? But there are ways for us now to learn to be mindful, even though we've gone through a system of education and have been trained in families and so on not to be there. No matter what we're doing, giving a talk, listening to a talk, playing golf, eating a sandwich, no matter what, you're doing it in one of these two ways, mindlessly or mindfully. Okay, now, I'm an academic, right? So I can't say what I really think because it's in print. I say most of our suffering. I really mean all. All of our suffering. Psychological and physical is the direct or indirect effect of mindlessness. So for over 35 years, I started when I was 10 years old. In study after study, we teach people one way or the other to be mindful in the fashion that I explained before. And what we'd find are measurable benefits to our creativity, our competence, our psychological well-being, and our physical health. Here are just some of the results. There's obviously not enough time to go through all of it, but you see we go from an increase in innovation to an increase in neonatal health. People live longer, all right? And I've got hard data on each of these.
This is just a hint of the possibilities of what happens when we live more mindfully and more consciously and more purposefully. And Ellen Langer's done many, many studies. One she did with assisted living in New Jersey. She did an experiment on 2 different floors at this facility. And one floor, they gave him a plant and they gave him an opportunity to see a movie. But there was a difference with this. One floor, she said, okay, on Tuesdays, we're going to have movie night, and here's a plant that we will take care of for you. On the other floor, it said, look, we have plants and movies. Let us know what you want. What she found, just exercising more consciousness, more choice, gave everyone more of a sense of control. And the people on the floor where they could choose what movie, when, or whatever, what the plant, these simple things, huge differences. They ended up being more active, they were happier, they were more alert, their conditions improved over 3 weeks' time. And those that didn't were really like 71% were more debilitated over 3 weeks. 3 weeks, I mean, there's even that. So many things. And twice as many of that plant-caring decision-making group were still alive 18 months later than those that were on where they didn't exercise their consciousness or their choice. It's so important for us to choose. It's very stunning, and so many other studies, but that's not all. I'm going to show you more about like what happens when you live purposefully. I want you to get ready to really like have your mind blown, because this like blew me away. It's really like, wow, what happens when we really live our moments more purposefully? Well, what happens when you live more purposefully? We have a juicy, more purposeful life. We make a difference to ourselves and others. We tend to love our lives and fulfill our destinies. It really helps us create greater well-being and progress toward our goals, whatever that we choose for ourselves. It impacts our health. Let's look at this, greater physical health. It really doubles your chances of staying drug and alcohol free if that's an issue for you. It like helps you just have other things to focus on. You have a stronger immune system. Look at this. So, and it really is decreased expression of various stress-related genes in your immune cells by living more purposefully. It activates natural killer cells that attach to virus and cancerous cells. It diminishes inflammatory cells. This is so huge. What happens? It increases your good cholesterol. If you're diabetic, if you have strong purpose, you're more likely to have your blood glucose under control. It reduces hospital stays. It cuts the risk of heart attacks and strokes. I have tons of data on all these things. I won't share. I'm giving you the summaries. It's quite amazing. And this next one really blew me away. It strikes out the risk of Alzheimer's by more than half. It really reduces the risk for Alzheimer's and less cognitive impairment and a slower rate of cognitive decline over time. And this one really blew me away. They did this longitudinal study of 900 seniors for 7 years, and they had agreed to have an autopsy at the end of this, when they died at the end, and they'd studied their lives during that time. They found that there were people, when they did the autopsy and looked at their brains, they actually had Alzheimer's. They had the tangles in their brain, but they did not show any symptoms. Some of these people who are living with sense of purpose. That blew me away. Like, oh my gosh, look at the possibilities when we live more in alignment with our yearning more purposefully. And the studies show it repairs DNA, that we have a longer life. It affects our telomeres. It has this huge impact. People who have purpose live longer than those who don't live their lives consciously and mindfully and with purpose. It's like, and lack of purpose contributes to disease and death as much as smoking and poor diet and inactivity and stress and lifestyle. So, and no matter what time of life you choose to live more purposefully, you still have a greater opportunity to live long and prosper. It's quite amazing. So people with a higher sense of purpose, this Rush study in Chicago found half the mortality rate. And not only do you live longer, but you have a higher quality of life. And let's look at our well-being, and I'll give you some hints on how to do this more. You have more a sense of well-being with this. You have better mental health. That helps you relax during the day. Many of us could use that. And also sleep better at night. You have less depression, more happiness. Just to see the joy in their faces, more friends come from, more contact with others. And this one was really interesting. The studies, you actually have better sex. So that's, we're not showing anything other than the feet right here, but just that's literally what the studies show. And it helps you to flourish more fully. You have a sense of integrating your motivation and your behavior. It decreases your cognitive load. You have more behavioral flexibility. You have more focused efforts. It reduces your barriers. You tend to thrive. And we thrive by adapting to changing environmental conditions. And it gives us more of that flexibility. We use our resources better when we're living on purpose. We use our energy, time, money for the things that really matter. And you can tell it's like you have more, by doing that, you have a greater persistence at difficult tasks. You have the resources to put where they're needed at that point. And you use your energy toward finding solutions rather than getting caught. So efficiency could actually be maybe the most important indicator of purposeful living. It also contributes to business success. Businesses that have a stronger sense of purpose do better financially. Purpose is a buffer in stressful times. So we really do need that. It leads to us to have more resources to protect threats to our immune system, and it activates our frontal lobe. So when you live with purpose, you have greater energy levels, more optimism, you have more resilience, you bounce back more fully, you're more satisfied, you have just much more that sense of satisfaction, fulfillment. You're more likely to do personal growth, to really grow and learn and change. You're excited about that. You have more self-acceptance. Your character strengths of like courage and justice start to build through this. Your willpower increases. You do better in your task. Your volunteering has more. If you're working, it has more impact with it. It just goes on and on and on. I can tell you so many things. You're less likely to get exhausted. You don't get burned out when you're living with more purpose in that way. It sustains your vitality. You have this kind of energy in your life, and you really are able to keep this going during challenging activities. So, wow, look at that. But I want you to look at what struck you the most about the benefits of living with purpose. What hit you? And I know I went through them quickly, but I want to bombard you with this, that it makes you healthier, that it strikes out the risk of Alzheimer's by more than half, that you live longer, you sleep better, delegate better, have more grace under pressure, more resilience, better sex. What is it that matters? What strikes you about that? Go ahead and vote with those. What are the things that hit you? What is it? I want them all. Yeah, I think they're all great. All right, makes you healthier. That's one that's consistent, which is totally understandable. 83%, that literally makes you healthier. And everything got folks. More resilience was next to that, and living longer, perfect. These are pretty amazing things to be looking at. Well, this is what can happen when we even just live our moments more purposefully. We don't have to worry about big overarching purpose. That may come, but it's really the moment. So I want to really look at this as a vision for ourselves. And I'm going to give you some tips to take this into your life. This is how we're designed to live. If we function this well, this way, I think this means this is how we're supposed to be living. Why would we have those great results otherwise? So we were thrilled when our research helped to show us, how to do that. This living from this frontal lobe living, this yearning and engaging. So let's review a little about that yearning, that purpose in the moment, like to be seen, heard, known, to love and be loved, to matter, to make a difference, all those things, to focus on that, to connect, plus, of course, all the other skills, but consciously engaging in your own transformation is what we're talking about. You're taking this sense of you living your life and you're directing it with your consciousness and your mindfulness to reap all these benefits. So let's talk about some takeaways for us. I want to give you some tools, some steps for you to take. To really, first one is like, think about, what do I yearn for in this moment? In any moment you can ask yourself, what do I yearn for? Why am I doing what I'm doing right now? What's my intention? What do I hope to get out of this in this moment? Because what do you yearn for? That's your purpose in the moment. Like for me right now and during this time, I yearn to connect with you, to make a difference, to express the joy and satisfaction that it is to live with purpose. That's guiding me right this moment as I'm being with you. To really think of, what's my yearning this moment? But then also kind of broader, the second one, identify what you yearn for in life. Do you yearn to matter? Do you yearn to have more love in your life, to love and be loved, to connect and to belong, to make a difference? Identify those things that matter to you the most and really hold that close in your heart. But then third one, engage in activities and ways of being to meet your yearning, and brainstorm ways that you can meet those yearnings and let those guide your activities. I mean, for me today, it's like I was with my husband early this morning and I was anxious. I was scared about some things I needed to do today. And I really yearned to feel secure. And I asked him to hold me, and he did. So it's very simple, but that was my purpose in that moment. In a staff meeting today, I yearned to connect with the people that I was with and to influence it in a positive direction. So I made sure I spoke up appropriately. I made contact with different people in the meeting so that I could fulfill that purpose just in that meeting. Even eating lunch, I really wanted to have that yearn to be secure and soothed and to matter and to take care of myself. So rather than stuffing my face in front of my computer, I had some nourishing food, put on some uplifting music, but really look at what I can do to do that. The fourth one, take conscious breaks to meet your yearnings rather than to slip into those soft addictions. So for me, I was tired this afternoon. I craved coffee, but I realized I really yearned to feel alive. And I took a 12-minute nap, which really helped. And then I put on music and dance for a few minutes. Wow, I could feel that aliveness, and it wasn't through caffeine this time. It really did refresh me. And the next one I want us to look at is follow your yearning to connect and contribute. That's the one that tends to bring the most benefit to all human beings, that we can connect to ourselves, to one another, that we can share our gifts with others, we can contribute to others, as well as allow ourselves to be contributed to really keep that cycle of receiving and giving is ultimate for us. So be aware, even as you go into tonight, what do you yearn for? Do you want to connect, reach out to your family and friends tonight? Want to touch and be touched? Hug your pet, whoever's there. You want to be nourished and tuck yourself in with a good book tonight, and look at what you could do tomorrow as you go for a walk or the activities to reap all the benefits of living with purpose. So I'm going to ask, if we can, you can let me know. Amy, do we have time to do a final poll of what they want to do out of this, or shall we just wrap up now? You tell me. I think, well, I'll just give you the choices, and whether we do the poll or not, we'll just give you the choices. I want you to do something differently from our time tonight. So focus on the purpose of why you're doing what you're doing in the moment. Are you going to be aware of what you yearn for and engage to meet your yearnings? Are you going to be more conscious and connected to yourself and others from what we've talked about? Are you going to limit your soft addictions and do things that truly nourish you instead? You're going to realize this is an important time to focus on what really matters and to live more purposefully and to share what you've learned with others. Any of those, all of those, I want you to grab one to take into your life. because I really want, may we all build the lives that we yearn for and navigate not just through these tough times, but to really learn to live our moments more purposefully, to make our mark, to fulfill our purpose, to use our lives well, and to leave the world a better place. And there's a thing that we use at the foundation, Wright Foundation, I'd like to share with you and sending you off into questions and other things that they're going to be with you with this wonderful True Life communities. But may we, through all that we're doing with one another, love fully, laugh loudly, risk boldly, feel deeply, express fearlessly, play hard, fight fiercely, work joyously, commit totally, live consciously, and lead courageously. We all live with purpose and have that fulfillment. And thank you for the opportunity to be together with you tonight. Thank you.
Wow. Oh, Dr. Wright, that was like amazing. I wish we had 4 more hours because I could keep going and answering that, and it's a wonderful segue to sort of how we're going to wrap today. At all of True Life communities, we support everyone to live their purpose, to create their own way of life, and to sort of identify for yourself, to discover what makes you want to be you. And we believe very, very strongly that everyone does that better in community, that you can develop a sense of your own purpose and live to live that if you age in community, if you live in community. And so as true believers, one might even say zealots for the cause of living with purpose and helping everyone have agency in their later years to make their own life the way, we're now embarking on a new adventure, which we're calling Opus. You may know that if you have very low incomes, lots of government programs can help you live with the traditional affordable housing that True Life does. And if you're very wealthy, and I mean very wealthy, there are amazing market opportunities to live a full life of connection and purpose, right? And if you're in that vast middle, meaning you might earn a little bit too much to qualify because our government sets a very top limit on who we can take, but not enough to comfortably be in the very rich people's domain, you're kind of without options. There aren't any real good places. And the reason there are no real good places, it doesn't work economically, right? Because we can't charge enough money in rent and cost to provide all the services and programs and energizing activities that help you find and deliver on your purpose. But we can't get government money and we can't rely on philanthropy because that works at the lower end. So we've been struggling with this for 4 or 5 years because we so believe everyone should have that option. And we came up with 3 ways to break through the conundrum. First is everyone who lives in an Opus community will volunteer serious time to do community purpose. And that so much that it will actually reduce the amount of staff and overhead we need so that the cost can remain low. The second is we're not trying to create isolated communities that live all by themselves and don't live in the outside world. We locate where you can engage outside of the 4 walls and not try and repeat everything in. And finally, we're making partnerships with other providers so that everything becomes more affordable and energizing. Now, we call it Opus. And the reason we call it Opus really relates so beautifully to Dr. Wright's talk. We call it Opus because we believe when you come to live with us, you come with experiences, wisdom, curiosities, all these things. And we want to help you create the next phase of your life to build on everything that's happened before and take it to the new levels that you want to take it to. And as I said, we believe every individual does it better in community. And the example I would give you is, if you think about a Beethoven symphony, right? If you listen to just the flutes, it's really nice. Listen to just the violins, also nice. But when you listen to all of the instruments together in an orchestra, it creates a magnum opus. It magnifies every individual instrument into something much greater. As Dr. Wright said, connect in a way that you connect and contribute to the larger society. We're going to build our first opus in Newton adjacent to our very special Coleman House with lots of wonderful things. We're in permitting now. And I'm going to turn it over to Sharon, our Chief Marketing Officer, because we're going to give you an opportunity to learn more following this and even to help us shape exactly how it comes out. And we're really excited. Thank you again, Dr. Wright. You are just perfect and amazing. And you are purposeful, and you gave us a renewed sense of purpose. And now Sharon's going to give everyone a chance to actualize that goal.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. Our purpose tonight was to bring you some really great new thinking and some big ideas. And Dr. Wright certainly did that. And we thank her for it. But if part of your purpose tonight was to know a little bit more about Opus and to learn some of the specifics about what we're going to be proposing for our Opus Newton project, we would love to tell you more. We have found that people really like to be able to ask their own questions on their own time. And so over the past couple of months, we've been doing something we call Opus small groups. These are groups of about 8 to 10 people that come to a Zoom, and we really sort of turn the floor over to you rather than doing a presentation. And we take your questions and try to answer them the best that we can at this point in our development of the Opus concept. So I wanted to let you know about that and let you know that you will be receiving an email because you attended the event tonight. And that email will offer you a link to go and to register for one of our upcoming small groups. We have 3 that are scheduled in the month of June. So we encourage you to come and to have more time really to talk about what your purpose is for the future and how Opus might fit that, and to get your questions answered as best we can answer them. So be on the lookout for an email. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we hope you enjoyed Dr. Wright as much as we all did. Have a good evening and a great Memorial Day weekend. Thank you.